This is a course about justice, and we begin with a story. Suppose you're the driver of a trolley car, and your trolley car is hurtling down the track at 60 miles an hour. And at the end of the track, you notice 5 workers working on the track. You try to stop, but you can't. Your brakes don't work. You feel desperate because you know that if you crash into these 5 workers, they will all die. Let's assume you know that for sure. And so you feel helpless until you notice that there is, off to the right, a side track. And at the end of that track, there's one worker working on the track. Your steering wheel works, so you can turn the trolley car, if you want to, onto the side track, killing the one, but sparing the 5. Here's our first question. What's the right thing to do? What would you do? Let's take a poll. How many would turn the trolley car onto the side track? Raise your hands. How many wouldn't? How many would go straight ahead? Keep your hands up, those of you who would go straight ahead. A handful of people would. The vast majority would turn. Let's consider another trolley car case and see whether those of you in the majority want to adhere to the principle, better that one should die so that 5 should live. This time you're not the driver of the trolley car, you're an onlooker. You're standing on a bridge overlooking a trolley car track. And down the track comes a trolley car. At the end of the track are 5 workers. The brakes don't work. The trolley car is about to careen into the 5 and kill them. And now, you're not the driver. You really feel helpless until you notice, standing next to you, leaning over the bridge, is a very fat man. And you could give him a shove. He would fall over the bridge, onto the track, right in the way of the trolley car. He would die, but he would spare the 5. Now, how many would push the fat man over the bridge? Raise your hand. How many wouldn't? Most people wouldn't. Here's the obvious question. What became of the principle? Better to save 5 lives even if it means sacrificing 1. What became of the principle that almost everyone endorsed in the first case? That's good. Let's imagine a different case. This time you're a doctor in an emergency room, and 6 patients come to you. They've been in a terrible trolley car wreck. 5 of them sustained moderate injuries. 1 is severely injured. You could spend all day caring for the 1 severely injured victim. But in that time, the 5 would die. Or you could look after the 5, restore them to health, but during that time, the 1 severely injured person would die. How many would save the 5? Now is the doctor. How many would save the 1? Very few people. Just a handful of people. Same reason, I assume. 1 life versus 5? Now consider another doctor case. This time you're a transplant surgeon, and you have 5 patients, each in desperate need of an organ transplant in order to survive. 1 needs a heart, 1 a lung, 1 a kidney, 1 a liver, and the 5th, a pancreas. And you have no organ donors. You are about to see them die. And then it occurs to you that in the next room there's a healthy guy who came in for a checkup. And you could go in very quietly, yank out the 5 organs, that person would die, but you could save the 5. How many would do it? Anyone? How many? Put your hands up if you would do it. Well, let's step back from these stories and these arguments to notice a couple of things about the way the arguments have begun to unfold. Certain moral principles have already begun to emerge from the discussions we've had. And let's consider what those moral principles look like. The first moral principle that emerged in the discussion said, the right thing to do, the moral thing to do, depends on the consequences that will result from your action. At the end of the day, better that 5 should live, even if 1 must die. That's an example of consequentialist moral reasoning. Consequentialist moral reasoning locates morality in the consequences of an act, in the state of the world that will result from the thing you do. But then we went a little further, we considered those other cases, and people weren't so sure about consequentialist moral reasoning. When people hesitated to push the fat man over the bridge, or to yank out the organs of the innocent patient, people gestured toward reasons having to do with the intrinsic quality of the act itself. Consequences be what they may. People were reluctant. People thought it was just wrong, categorically wrong, to kill a person, an innocent person, even for the sake of saving 5 lives. At least people thought that in the second version of each story we considered. So this points to a second categorical way of thinking about moral reasoning. Categorical moral reasoning locates morality in certain absolute moral requirements, certain categorical duties and rights, regardless of the consequences. We're going to explore in the days and weeks to come the contrast between consequentialist and categorical moral principles. The most influential example of consequential moral reasoning is utilitarianism, a doctrine invented by Jeremy Bentham, the 18th century English political philosopher. The most important philosopher of categorical moral reasoning is the 18th century German philosopher Immanuel Kant.
关于伦理学上的电车难题啊，是应该为了多数人的幸福牺牲少数人，还是坚决捍卫少数人的权利？我们总是感觉很难选择，萨特却给了我们第3种选择。这个选择是什么呢？萨特在他的《存在主义是一种人道主义》一书中写了这样一个思想实验：假设你是一个法国人，你对纳粹充满了仇恨，想要参军报国，但是如果你去参军，家里重病缠身的老母亲就没有人照顾了。这是一个忠孝难两全的问题，你该怎么选择呢？我们可以看到这个问题和电车难题非常相似。按照康德伦理学的要求，永远不要把另外一个人当作手段，而要把人当作目的。如果按照这种理论你会发现这个学生根本就没有办法选择。如果他选择和母亲在一起，母亲就是目的，而战场上为了法兰西尔战斗的人则被当作了手段。如果他选择去战斗，那么就不得不牺牲母亲，母亲呢变成了成全自己的手段。萨特只给了这个法国人一个很简单的回答：你是自由的，你就是你的选择。你可能听到这个回答有点懵，这个答案不就是没有答案吗？对，你就是你的选择。无论你选择保护多数人还是保护少数人，无论你选择为国尽忠还是为母尽孝，无论你选择做边境战士 还是选择做康德护卫，这都是你的选择。你要做的呀，只是对你的选择负起100%的责任。是你的选择定义了你是谁。如果你选择报国，你就要面对不能尽孝的事实，这是你选择的结果。如果你选择保护多数人，你就要面对牺牲少数人的良心谴责，因为这是你的选择。而人啊，经常会自己欺骗自己，明明是自己做出的选择，却偏偏要推给所谓的道德处境，就好像不是自己要做这样的选择的，而是一些不可抗拒的力量才让自己做出的选择。萨特说，这样的人啊，其实是懦夫。而什么样的人可以成为英雄呢？萨特在戏剧《苍蝇》中刻画了他心目中的英雄。在这部以希腊为背景的剧中啊，俄瑞斯特斯为父亲阿伽门农王复仇，亲手杀死了自己的母亲。人们非常愤怒，要把他千刀万剐。俄瑞斯特斯却对人们说道，我的罪过由我担当，我面对着太阳承认我的罪过，它是我生存的理由和我的骄傲，你们不能惩罚我，也不能可怜我。萨特说，是懦夫把自己变成懦夫，是英雄把自己变成英雄。而当你承担起你人生的全部责任，就没有任何人能定义你的人生。